Feel free to check out my TeePublic after the video, and support me on Patreon. Watch till the end of the video for more. I talked about the original live-action Transformers trilogy from the original 2007 blockbuster that blew everyone's minds up to Dark of the Moon. To pretty much recap my final thoughts from that video, I absolutely love the original 2007 film as this action-packed spectacle. Revenge of the Fallen definitely has flaws, but it easily has the best action out of the three. And finally, Dark of the Moon, which I felt had a solid story and served as a good conclusion to what they've set up. But with Transformers Rise of the Beasts on the way, I figured it's time that I continue this retrospective with the rest of the Michael Bay directed Transformers films. Transformers Dark of the Moon earned $1.124 billion worldwide, making it the highest grossing installment in the series and still to this day. I remember going on vacation to Colorado with my family in the summer of 2011, and we went to a bookstore where I found the Transformers Vault by Pablo Hidalgo. Being what was essentially the peak of my obsession with Transformers at the time, it was astonishing to bear witness to this wonderful treasure trove of information that covers the history of the Transformers franchise in great depth. I remember there being a segment that talked about the live-action films, and I distinctly recall this book confirming that the upcoming Transformers Dark of the Moon was going to be Michael Bay's finale to this Transformers saga. Despite what we were meant to believe, Dark of the Moon would not be the last one. Why?
Merchandising, where the real money from the movie is made.
And hey, with the amount of money Dark of the Moon made, why not? What could possibly go wrong?
How old are you?
20.
This is illegal. She's a minor.
We're protected by the Romeo and Juliet laws.
I'll get to that. Now, as a fan of the first three films, you can imagine my intrigue as more news about the development of this next installment were coming out. First, Michael Bay was returning to direct, Aaron Kruger was still providing the screenplay. Wait, no Shia LaBeouf? Mark Wahlberg is the lead? Because of this, there was speculation that after Michael Bay directed Pain and Gain, starring Mark Wahlberg and Dwayne Johnson, there would eventually be a G.I. Joe and Transformers crossover movie, which wouldn't be the first time it happened. But hey, if producer Lorenzo Di Bonaventura says it can still happen, well, we'll see. Now we're getting off topic. I distinctly remember the hype that was building up towards this next Transformers, subtitled Age of Extinction, as after being demanded for so long, this installment would finally include the fan favorite Dinobots. Megatron would be coming back as Galvatron, but voiced by Frank Welker, and that another fan favorite character, being Lockdown from Transformers Animated, was also receiving the live action treatment. And on top of it, Age of Extinction would have the budget of $210 million versus Dark of the Moon's $195 million. But the biggest head scratcher for me personally was that Imagine Dragons was going to be releasing a song for the film instead of Linkin Park, which I felt was a huge shame because while I won't deny the success of Imagine Dragons, I felt Linkin Park really brought a great sense of beauty and emotion to the Transformers films. There was also the video game Transformers Rise of the Darkspark, a crossover of High Moon's Transformers video game series and Age of Extinction, which, to put it lightly, was a major disappointment. Though from what it looked like, Age of Extinction was looking very promising, especially after the film had a massive premiere in China. In this film, 5 years have passed since the battle in Chicago from Dark of the Moon. Both Autobots and Decepticons alike are being hunted, forced to go into hiding. We follow Mark Wahlberg as Kate Yeager, who finds Optimus Prime, who's trying to reassemble with his fellow Autobots to take down the villainous Lockdown, who's hunting down the Autobots as well. Meanwhile, a company known as KSI has discovered a rare element dubbed Transformium and are using it to create their own Transformer hunting robots, including a reincarnated Megatron, now called Galvatron, and a clone of Bumblebee named Stinger. This sounds like such an interesting concept, as it really reminds me of the Marvel Transformers comics, where, unlike the cartoon, the Autobots had to hide among the humans in order to thwart the plans of the Decepticons, as well as having to deal with human threats. And as a fan of Marvel's run of Transformers, it was honestly refreshing to see this take on the Transformers get adapted. It's also worth noting that Age of Extinction is the longest of the live-action Transformers films, clocking in at 2 hours and 45 minutes, and unfortunately, this one does have a case of feeling very bloated, as the final third of the film kinda feels like a drag to get through, but everything before I felt was paced rather well. The action set pieces are always a treat to behold, and the CG effects do look really nice for the most part, even if they're not as tight as the films prior, and there are definitely some jank-ass moments. However, I will say I'm not really a huge fan of some of the designs of the Transformers. I think they look fine, but they just don't hit the mark like Ironhide or Blackout. I think the Dinobots look cool and all, and I love Lockdown's design. I mean, his face turns into a gun, and he's a Lamborghini. Though my least favorite has got to be Optimus Prime. I get they wanted to go for a sort of night aesthetic, but part of the appeal of the Transformers was guessing what they changed into. Would you even guess that this design transformed into something? Speaking of the Transformers, I feel like the only thing keeping them from being forgettable is the voice cast. Ken Watanabe, John Goodman, John DiMaggio, all recognizable voices, but I understand why they were limited in terms of the story. Also, I can't stress this enough, I love Lockdown. Easily the best part of this movie. He's a very interesting character with an aesthetically pleasing design and a neat voice performance by Mark Ryan. And when it comes to Peter Cullen as Optimus Prime, I can see why people would have an issue with him being a merciless, vengeful warrior who's out for blood at this point. But considering what he's gone through, I totally understand this change in the character. And even though he's not in it a lot, it was nice getting to hear Frank Welker voice Galvatron again. Also, Stinger is just Bumblebee Char Aznable custom, and the Dinobots are kinda just there. As for the human characters, I honestly really liked Mark Wahlberg's performance. He somehow manages to make Cade a rather compelling character who pretty much has the entire world on his shoulders and really cares about the safety of his daughter. Though Kelsey Grammer as the human villain came off as very one-dimensional and was just there to be evil and stuff. Stanley Tucci makes for a neat John Turturro stand-in with his charisma, but he's obviously not John Turturro. Nicola Peltz and Jack Raynor make for a neat support, but unfortunately, they don't have much to do, aside from...
This is illegal. She's a minor.
We're protected by the Romeo and Juliet laws.
That a real law?
Yep, I like to be fresh when I'm making out with your daughter.
You know, this character dynamic wouldn't have been so problematic if they actually bumped Tessa's age to 18 and in a way would have helped make the dynamic between Tessa and Cade a little stronger. And the fact that there's an entire scene defending their relationship just does not sit well with me, and I'm sure many others feel the same. But hey, pedophilia jokes are funny.
I think she looks hot.
What did you say?
Like a hot teenager.
Aside from that, the cinematography is decent, with some occasional shots that do look really nice, and the score from Steve Jablonsky and Hans Zimmer, while not as memorable as the music in the films prior, is serviceable. Though I do love Lockdown's theme. Also, who the hell is this guy? He just shows up out of nowhere during the final battle against Lockdown, and he just pops up out of nowhere, dies, was never acknowledged at all, who is that? Overall, Transformers: Age of Extinction is not a bad film. It's definitely style over substance with the usual corny jokes, some head scratchers, and some definite need for improvement. Though it did make for a neat action spectacle, even if it left more to be desired. I've been dreading this one. So, Age of Extinction, while earning $1.104 billion, was met with a lot of understandably negative reviews. People were starting to get the impression that the Transformers movies were nothing but just jokes from Hollywood, pumping out these mindless blockbusters because they could, and people eat it up regardless, especially China. So when Transformers: The Last Knight was announced, it only reassured those beliefs. This installment would have the budget of somewhere between $217 million and $260 million, making it the most expensive live-action Transformers film in this series. And on top of it, the movie looked like it had some promise. This time, John Turturro and Josh Duhamel from the first three films were coming back. And there were plans to use this installment to solidify a potential Transformers cinematic universe. There was a peak of this in Age of Extinction as the film alluded to the origins of the Transformers, and The Last Knight would go deeper into the Transformers mythos. Then there was the controversy of Winston Churchill's birth home being draped in Nazi banners for a set piece. But controversy aside, Michael Bay has finally gave in, saying that this is the last one for him to direct. And instead of Aaron Kruger, Art Markham of Iron Man and Punisher Warzone was providing the screenplay. The Last Knight looked like it was going to be a serviceable finale with the usual amazing looking action scenes, with the addition of NemesisPrime, and a plot that looked like it was going to be the culmination of everything that has come before. And with mass speculation and anticipation, Transformers: The Last Knight ended up being one of the biggest disappointments in cinema. No one had anything positive to say about this film, and it earned $605.4 million, which isn't too bad compared to its budget. But compared to its predecessors and the amount of marketing that is spent on these films and their respective merchandise, it's a pretty significant drop, making it the lowest earning Transformers film at the time. Words cannot describe the type of film The Last Knight ended up becoming. As a matter of fact, the plot is nearly indescribable. Basically, Optimus Prime returns to Cybertron, which I'm pretty sure was destroyed, or at least part of it, back in Dark of the Moon. There he meets Quintessa, who turns out to be his creator and the prime of life. Basically, she reveals that Earth is actually the ultimate chaos bringer of all Transformers himself, Unicron. So to restore Cybertron, Quintessa needs Merlin's staff, because apparently there were Transformers during the Dark Ages fighting alongside humans? Which I guess makes sense, because there were Transformers during the dinosaur times, as well as ancient human history, and were apparently on the moon? But let's not forget that the reason the Transformers came to Earth in the first place was to retrieve the Allspark, which is the very thing that brings life to all Transformers. But wait a minute, this Transformium element and this seed thing is what also gave life to Transformers? What the hell happened to the Allspark? Hold on, if Unicron was Earth the entire time, why do Transformers keep coming to it if he's basically the embodiment of all Oh yeah, it's because Merlin's staff is there and they need it to restore Cybertron. But how did it get there in the first place? There's also another MacGuffin called the Talisman that does fuck all and just gives Mark Wahlberg a cool sword at the end, which turns out to be the Sword of Excalibur, because why not? I'm trying my best to describe this movie's plot. I read the synopsis on Wikipedia and I cannot make any sense of this. It's literally just things happening with so many plot holes and continuity errors. It's impossible to fathom how such lazy and careless writing could be approved. Oh yeah, remember when I said that they wanted to do a Transformers cinematic universe and go deeper into the Transformers mythos? They can't even do that because of just how fucked the consistency and the storytelling is. They don't even bother trying to make it make sense. But when they do, it just gets even more confusing. The fucking Camelot episode of G1 made more sense.
Cats! Giants! We're doomed!
Plus, all the characters are extremely forgettable and add nothing, except when they need to dump exposition or just be fan service for fans of the prior films because, hey guys, remember Agent Simmons and how funny, interesting, and charismatic he was? Wanna see him be completely devoid of all that? Oh, we have Sergeant Lennox. Remember all the development he had in the first 3 films that made him a compelling and memorable character? What if we just reduce him to nothing? I don't give a shit about Mark Wahlberg. I don't give a shit about Isabella Merced. I don't give a shit about Anthony Hopkins' old wrinkly ass. Oh yeah, and let's have Laura Haddock just be a Megan Fox stand-in, even though Michaela was actually a character who experienced development and had a purpose in the first 2 movies, instead of just be a woman. She's woman. That's it. That's her. That's this character. Just woman. Nothing else. The action and CG hold very little weight because due to how the movie is written, what is even going on and why does any of this matter? By the way, they suck ass too. As for the Transformers themselves, I don't care. I'm sorry, I just don't care. I could never invest myself in anything that was happening in this movie, period, because it's clear that no one gave a shit. Bumblebee's World War II look was cool, I guess. Also, why is Megatron Megatron again and not Galvatron like the last movie? When did this happen? How is Starscream's head intact when it blew up in Dark of the Moon? Why doesn't Optimus Prime remember that Cybertron got fucked in Dark of the Moon? Why does Optimus say that he hasn't heard Bumblebee talk since Cybertron fell when he talked at the end of the first movie? And on top of it all, the aspect ratio. The fucking aspect ratio. Every single shot in this movie is in a different aspect ratio, and it is distracting as hell. Why is the aspect ratio constantly changing? What kind of mind do you need to have in order to deliberately, purposefully screw up perhaps the most basic thing you learn about in fucking film school? And it doesn't help that the editing is just horrendous, the pacing is just awful. I can't find a single redeeming quality about this movie. No question about it, Transformers: The Last Knight is easily one of the absolute worst films I've ever seen. It's a movie that aged horribly as soon as it was released. Dead on arrival. This was the very first time in my life that I ever left a movie theater actually angry. I hate this movie with my entire being. I refuse to acknowledge its existence. How does a movie like this even exist? At least with Devilman, they tried to make it make sense. Yeah, it's a piece of shit, but at least it was aiming for something. And that movie was made with significantly less money than this. Bottom line, fuck this movie. As a fan of the first 3 live-action Transformers films, I personally feel they shouldn't have continued. What was already established and wrapped up by Dark of the Moon was enough to make an epic, worthwhile story that had rightfully garnered a fan base over the years. And it definitely appears that whatever they tried to do with Age of Extinction and The Last Knight certainly did not do anyone any favors. But there was hope. Because The Last Knight performed extremely poorly, and Paramount came to terms with the fact that no one really wants these movies, they opted for a fresh start by rebooting the franchise almost immediately. And we'll get into that next time I feel like talking about Transformers on the channel again.
Do it! Just do it! Don't let your dreams be dreams. Yesterday, you said tomorrow, so just do it! Make your dreams come true! Just do it! Some people dream of success while you're gonna wake up and work hard at it. Nothing is impossible. You should get to the point where anyone else would quit, and you're not gonna stop there. No, what are you waiting for? Do it! Just do it! Yes, you can! Just do it! If you're tired of starting over, stop giving up.
I'm coming.